just for show. Hopefully there's no cameras the camera.
I know. I know.
It being 7:02 PM on Wednesday, January 17th, 2024, we'll begin tonight's Select Board meeting. The first item on the agenda is public comment. Is there anyone here for public comment? All right. The next item, review of minutes for December 13th, 2023.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve the minutes created for December 13th, 2023.
Second.
Any discussion? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Can we just get the minutes posted on the website from November and December? The last one's up there is October 18th.
Okay, yeah, I thought those,
Yeah, we talked about it, but I don't think I made them. I checked today.
Yeah.
All right, and then the next item on the agenda, Class 2 vehicle dealer license hearing, continued for 1177 Main Street, Papa Auto LLC, doing business as Papa Auto. If you want to come up and introduce yourself, please.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Mohammed Mashawi. I've been here before. We did discuss, the only thing it was for the planning board for how many cars the license supposed to be. So we did the planning board and everything set for 12 cars and,
12 cars.
12 cars. They said after 6 months, if you want to apply for more, you can come just, and we can add it.
Very good. All right, so 12. So this is a continued hearing, so we'll hear from the public?
Right, yeah. So I think once the new information came to light, then you could still open up for public comment. If it's, 'cause initially it was 20, now it's 12, to see if there's any comment on that. Yep.
Okay, all right, so let's open up the hearing to the public. Is there anyone here in support of this? There being none, we will close that portion. Is there anyone here opposed to this? There being none, we'll close that portion. Are there any questions from the board?
Not me.
There being none, what's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve the application received from Papa Auto LLC for a license to operate Class 2 vehicle dealer business at 1177 Main Street in Clinton.
Second?
Any discussion or questions? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much.
Good luck.
Yes, good luck, thank you.
Very good. So the next item is going to be tabled to our next meeting for the Bigelow Library Grant Focus Group. That leaves the Mass Trail Grant with Randy Hodge. If you'd like to come up, please.
So Phil wasn't able to join us tonight, but I did speak to him about what the plan is. So I was at the select board meeting on January 3rd, and at the time we had maybe 3 possibilities for applying for the Mass Trails grant. I met with the Mass Trails group the following day, and they strongly recommended that we apply to start building the trail. One of the things that we thought we would have to get grant money for is a feasibility study for the west portal of the tunnel. And they believe that Mass DOT will be able to fund that on their own, so we don't have to ask for that, that's all good for us because the funding's going to come from them at the end of the day anyway. And then there's another section of trail that we've left out of the design phase when we completed the notice of intent. And after talking to a few people, their advice was do the permitting for that with a larger part of the project. Typically, the permitting bodies don't like for you to say, well, I want to just do this little piece of it for permitting now and not look at the whole project. So I think it will make sense to do that when we start permitting for the tunnel remediation. It's the section of the trail that we excluded. You weren't here last time, Mr. DeVault. From the east portal of the tunnel to Clamshell Road. The way that Mass DEP ruled on that particular section, it was going to take many more months of permitting to complete a design for that. So we didn't have any more time on this bring around. So we said, we'll take that out and just do the section. So I didn't bring a ton of handouts, but I can maybe send these copies to you, Michael, or to the distribution list. But essentially, is it okay if I approach?
Yeah.
So essentially, the build for the trail itself, so what we did is from this public access point, that's the paddock field on Roger Farm, and this is a trail, and all the way to the Berlin town line. So we completed the design for all of that section. The cost for that complete section is about $1.1 million. The trail grants maximum are $500,000, so it means you can do a $625,000 project with the match. Oh, I'm not on mic, sorry for that. Yeah, I didn't even know about that. And so the idea would be we can do about half of the trail development. So what we're thinking is we'll try to do the access points at both ends. The trail is pretty easily accessible. Through this section, it's all pretty level. And these sections are actually not good. It's hard to get on the trail from the paddock field on Rousher Farm, and it's also we just acquired this parcel, the Clinton Greenway Conservation Trust, so all of this, there's woods and things that need to be cleared to get to the trail. So it would actually make it very walkable at the end of that development phase. And just to give you an idea, so this is a parcel that the CDCT acquired at 447 Berlin Street. This is the Birchwood condominiums. This is the Woodlands. So it's this parcel in between the two, here I am again walking away from the mic, in between those two developments. So it's actually a really beautiful 4-acre parcel, but a really nice feature is it has a parking lot. So we'll be able to use it as a trailhead. And then the trail design is now sort of, was originally going a little bit closer to Birchwood, and they said, well, why don't you go this way, which actually is a little bit easier route because it's a little bit more clear, and it actually then gives both condominium complexes get privacy. And this parking area also, this house windows face this way, so it's actually a pretty private area for people to come in and park. So the idea would be we start at those two ends. At the Rauscher Farm end, we will probably, we're trying to do a slight adjustment to the way the trail was designed. We really don't want to use a lot of parking there. There are a lot of abutters to that field, so we want it for trail access and just for accessible parking. And then this is the trail down to Paso. This is Clamshell Road, and this is onto the trail. And the other thing is, this little bridge design was not done to accommodate vehicles, and I believe both fire and police want to have vehicle access to the trail from there. It's, right now, when they go into the tunnel, they go in this way and go through all that wet area, so I think that will be something that we need to adjust. But the idea would be we can at least get those two ends done, and then maybe a part in the middle.
That's great.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So what I'm looking for is a letter of support from the select board, and the application is due February 1st. So that's the time the meetings just worked out perfectly. You want to take a look at those? I don't know if you're, yeah. And you guys can keep these copies.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Any questions?
So is the letter like mostly written and you just need us to sign it, or is it so we have to
Yeah,
create the letter?
No, so I provided a sample draft, so you
Okay.
can kind of add any other additional comments. It's funny because we've done this a bunch of times now.
Yeah.
So I looked at the letter and I go, I think the letter sounded pretty good last time.
Yeah.
Copy
Just update the date. And essentially what you have to change is we're now starting the build phase. And I think that's really exciting for Clinton to be moving forward with building.
Yeah, that is exciting.
Yeah, and Mr. Chair, if I could, just wanted to bring up as well, as part of this grant, and Franny probably knows more about it, but our Regional Planning Commission, they're looking to submit a grant too, to kind of delineate some trails around the region. They were looking for Clinton's participation with a $1,000 donation. And I know, not donation, but a $1,000 match. In talking with Mr. Duffy, he indicated that, he would have funding in his office that could be used for that if it's something that the board wanted to pursue, but maybe Franny could elaborate a little bit.
Oh, yeah, sure, and I should have thought to bring that up. My girlfriend said, copy me on the message. Yeah, so essentially, the Massachusetts Regional Planning Commission is submitting a grant proposal in the same round for Mass Trails funding to do a regional trails project. So essentially, for all the Massachusetts communities, figuring out what trails are important, how to highlight them, how to market them, and get a little bit more enthusiasm about some of those things. The members of the Massachusetts Regional Planning Commission Trail Committee have been very supportive of our efforts on the Mass Central Rail Trail. And part of this regional trails vision is to think about, well, where does that meet with the Twin Cities Rail Trail? How do those, two come together and be part of a much larger trail cycle, but also just to generate more interest and enthusiasm from the communities.
Excellent.
And it's a pretty small
Two
ask.
separate items, but
Yeah.
it's all part of the same
Yeah.
issue, so I just wanted to put that out there for the board's consideration as well, because I think the grant is due before their next meeting
Yes, the grant's due on February 1st.
first,
Yeah.
So it'd be something
Okay.
you would need action on tonight.
Mr. Chair, so this letter of support, what specific part of this program are we supporting? 'Cause-
Exactly. Yeah, so we will have to have a warrant article at town meeting, and I think I referenced that in the draft letter. Michael, you can correct me if you remember. So what we'll apply for is a $625,000 project.
Yeah.
The match provided by the town would be $125,000. So it would be, most of the, well, half the trail built, but the two difficult parts completed with this trails funding.
Right, but the letter that you're requesting us for tonight is just a letter of support, right?
It's a letter of support for the application.
For the
right.
application, right, so like.
Exactly.
But like, this is only one section of a bigger project, right? Or am I misunderstanding?
So, excellent question. So this trail development project for Clinton is kind of, you can think of that as a standalone thing that Clinton's doing.
Okay.
It is part of a much bigger trail network, the Mass
Right.
Central Rail Trail. But the way the funding works is individual communities apply for grants and develop various sections of the trail.
Right.
The Massachusetts proposal is just to build a marketing plan and a plan for additional development of trails in the region. So it's a pretty small grant. I think they're getting asked for 50K or something like that. It's not a big grant. So they were looking for support from the Massachusetts communities for the match on that grant.
Okay.
So they're asking Clinton for $1,000 for that.
Yeah, and that part, I think I was thinking that even in the realm of just the Clinton portion of the rail trail,
It's just
that this is a specific section of it. So when I make the motion to write a letter of support, I just would like to be able to say, make a motion, we write a letter of support for blah, blah, blah section of the rail trail Clinton project.
Yeah,
Like,
so-
how would I phrase it?
Yeah, so I would say a letter of support for the grant application for development of the Mass Central Rail Trail Clinton section from Rauscher Farm to the Woodlands, or 447 Berlin Street might be the better way to say it.
Okay.
Because we won't actually be on the Woodlands property at all
Yeah, can I do that?
in
Can I
this
just-
section.
So moved. Thank you. Thank you. Like,
What she said.
You said it so well.
Any discussion or questions? There be none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks very
Very
much.
good, thank you so much.
Yeah.
And do we also need to make
Yeah,
the match?
second piece, if the
Yeah.
board wanted to support that, joining the regional application for the trail marketing plan.
Yeah.
For a $1,000 match from the Economic Development Office.
Another so moved.
Second.
Any discussion or questions? There be none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, the next item on the agenda, American Rescue Plan Act recommendations, Board of Health, Supplies, and Carport. If you want to come up to the table, please. All right, good evening.
All right, I guess we started, well, last February, we thanked the board because you actually approved $40,000 for a car, we spent $31,000, and we looked at for $10,000 just to replenish the stuff that we used. And what we used was for the fire department, police department, the senior center, and that was with surgical masks, hand sanitizers. What we're looking to do is to get like two pop-up tents with the sides. So if we have to be out outside again to be able to do that. Some gloves, medium, extra large, and 4 folding tables and the carport. And it looked like we'd come under. It's closer to like 7,000 rather than 10. But to replenish everything we needed, I know when the police department needed something or the fire department, we just drove down and gave them boxes of what we had. And,
Do you want to do the 10 that you requested and?
well, if we could do that, and then we could get more than what we had for masks. We were only looking, like if we get like 5,000 masks. I know they went quick when we had them at the time, but that's what we put in for. If it's available, if we could do the 10, then we could section it all off, and we could get everything in storage.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not perishable or anything, right?
No.
No.
I mean, since COVID, we've gone through probably 25,000 masks. Don't know how many boxes of gloves, sanitizer. I mean,
And we did, we gave them to the school, we gave them to whatever we needed at the time. We tried, but like, we got that through MPHN and stuff, but once it was gone, we didn't get to replenish like we could.
So for the 10,000, that would include the carport also?
It would include the carport. That we would put the carport together, have it delivered, and then we would put it together and up at the water treatment plant and put it there.
Do you have just a rough number on the carport?
Yeah, that's what it was, like 3,500.
And then for the tents?
The tents were, hold on, that was 600. That's for two 10-by-10s with the sides.
And then the last thing you had mentioned was the tables? The
The tables were, it came up to about, the folding was like $90 a piece for like $360. But
So you're talking 4,500 for carport, tent, tables, and then...
we had the gloves.
Yeah, so then on the other side, the PPE would be...
We could add more because the gloves alone at $50 a box, they come to $9.50 a box. And that with medium, extra large, and large, at 50 boxes at each size, it was $1,425.
You know, I don't know how the board feels, you know, could we consider doing the 4,500 and then would you think close to 10, like would the 10,000 for PPE itself be overkill or?
No, we would have it because it doesn't ever go bad, but if like the police and the fire department knew that we needed it or the school, that we have it, that we would relinquish it.
I mean, I think, you know, based upon the projected cost of the vehicle, and then, you know, if that money was already earmarked, you know, if the board would be open to supporting 4,500 for the carport, two
the tents
tents and the tables,
Yeah.
and then doing 10,000 to replenish the PPE.
So just so I can understand, so they're asking, the ask was for 10K for all of this, but we're recommending that we do the 4,500 for the carport. So I mean, it'd almost be like, you know, 15 grand instead of 10 grand? Or am I misunderstanding?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't have a problem, but is it, so the real difference would just be instead of like 5 grand on masks and gloves and whatever else is entailed in PPE, would be spending 10 grand on masks, gloves, and various PPE, right? And we think that that's good to have a good supply of, just,
Yeah, how long do you think that like would last? given the
Right, but
usage
it's,
now? I mean,
it's what we got the last time, and we used it.
Yeah.
Prices have gone up in the last 2 years, so
Yeah.
we wouldn't get as much for the 10,000 this time around.
yeah.
but we'd have it on hand. So we
Right,
wouldn't,
right.
because last time we were scrambling, we used everything, and the
No,
next thing you know, we used the 10,000 just to replenish, and that was gone.
I agree, and they don't, like you said, they're not perishable, so that we will have them forever. And I know, God willing, we don't want another pandemic, but when that pandemic first struck, it was madness to get a mask. And hospitals were calling my workplace because they knew that we worked in clean rooms and they were begging us for like masks. It was crazy. So I don't really have a problem with having a nice big supply of masks just in case something else happens again. We'll be a little bit prepared. At least masks for like the first responders and stuff like that. Yeah.
Absolutely, and we store them downstairs, so it's.
Yeah.
The vehicle was what, was it 32? What was the number?
Yeah, it was like 32.
Yeah, so, I mean, so your initial request was for 50,000, so even with these updated numbers, we're still under that initial 50,000, so it's not like we're spilling over.
Okay.
And the carport is for the vehicle?
No, it's for the emergency trailer.
Trailer? Okay.
Right.
So if you look at the trailer up behind the filtration plant, it's all covered in a tarp. We've sent it out for repair once. It just doesn't stand up to the weather. And inside of that are all our cots, blankets, pillows, all the stuff to set up a shelter. So rather than see that ruined, we got to figure out a better way.
So this carport is one of those like more heavy-duty plastic
Yeah.
ones?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Will we enclose, will it have the zipper on the, like the zipper on the front to enclose completely, or?
No, I won't enclose completely. It's and mostly it's the top, it needs to be covered.
Yeah.
Because that's where everything sits on top, and where it leaked in.
Gotcha.
We had,
It's the freezing and the thawing is creating cracks and it's leaking.
So-
It's not an expensive one.
myself and John went up and we tapped it with bungee cords and everything else, and every time when the wind blows, we gotta redo it to make sure it stays.
How old is that trailer? Is it?
We got that, 8 years ago? Oh,
Yeah, we got that on a grant.
that's a Region 2
Oh, yeah.
commitment.
Yeah, and they repaired it for us the first time. I think they all had to go out for repair.
Yeah.
But it's been probably 4 or 5 years since then.
Yeah, they redid, I mean, the tires rot on it, so it's been there for that long, but they redid those too, so it's, you know,
All right, so we're thinking 2 separate motions, one for the carport, the tents and the tables, and then another separate one for the PPE.
Or, I mean, or can we do one for 14,500?
I think just doing it one
One.
keeps
Okay,
it.
that's fine with me.
Give me
All
some
right.
flexibility there.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve 14,500 for the use, for the Board of Health, for the use of a carport, 2 tents, tables, and various PPE equipment.
Second.
Any questions? There be none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
So are you planning on staying for the request for the municipal vehicle?
I'm not sure.
So on the agenda, we have municipal on-call take-home request
Okay.
from the Board of Health. I don't know, can we move out of order? If you're planning on staying,
We'll stay.
then we
Yeah.
Well,
can
it's-
Yeah.
move out of order.
Yep.
And then,
Do you want me to make a motion?
Yeah.
Yeah, I make a motion that we move out of order, move the municipal on-call vehicle take-home request agenda item up to the front.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
All right. Very good. So the Select Board had adopted the municipal vehicle use policy, and the Board of Health had submitted a request for the ability to take the vehicle home purchased through the ARPA funds. So, you wanna-
Well, we have the vehicle in the first part of the month. We had John McNally took it home. John McNally lives less than a half a mile from here. I feel it was much safer either on Walnut Street or parked up at the senior center. But like I said, you asked before, we got called out 6 times. Granted, it's not a lot, but it's 2:30 in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning. John got called out twice, I got called out 4 times. When the police, fire come up and knock on your door and they say, I need you, I'm like, all right, I'm on my way. But it's up to the board. If you don't think we need one, then that's, I mean, it just seems it's safer, but whatever you guys want. No big.
So when they contact you, are they going to the home, or is it a phone call, or?
I usually get it, if I had my phone downstairs, if I don't answer it, they'll drive up, bang on the door, and say, I need you down on Parker Street. We had an electrical fire. There's hoarders down there. They're Parker Street, the same thing. Lady fell. She was there from 7 o'clock at night till 9 o'clock in the morning. But it's a lot of hoarded things that we have to, close the place down. And mostly, if it's have anything to do with a tenements, that's when we get called. If a single-family house, something happens, the building inspector usually gets called by himself. But I've been out with Jimmy, and we had the flood down on Sterling Street. We had to close down TC Lando's because the water was running through the place. But it's, whatever it happens, you don't want, you're on call, but when they need you, they need you. That's all the thing it was.
Yeah.
But
what you have to know is, a lot of the times, we're determining whether the house is fit for human habitation. So whether it's a fire, a flood, or hoarders, we make that call. Then we can't just leave them there. We have to find housing. We got to find a place for them to go, call the Red Cross. So that's why we're on call for that purpose, so that people aren't stranded. I mean, it's not something you can put off till the next morning. So,
Right.
I mean, that's the priority. There's not a lot of those calls, but the ones that come, years past, we had all of 48 High Street. There was a flood. We had to put them all up at the St. John's Gym for 2 days.
Yeah.
We got Red Cross involved. We had to feed them and get cots and blankets and everything. So there aren't a lot of instances when you do, but I mean, when they call you, Tom and John are good about going out all hours of the night, and they're not paid for it. I mean, their salary, they take pride in their work, and they show up, and they're there to help, so.
Yeah.
Right, so the ask is because inconvenience of
Yeah.
like, because you'd have to drive here, get the truck, and then drive to wherever the call is.
wherever they need us.
Yeah.
And if it's winter at 2 in the morning, who's to say that the senior center's plowed out?
Yeah.
Now you can't get to the car, and now you're shoveling 2 cars out.
Yeah, I hope it would be plowed up, but yeah, at 2 in the morning, who knows? And, I mean, we kind of have I don't know if it's a written policy or precedent. I mean, there are people that have town vehicles that take them home, right? And the justification is that they're people that have to respond to, obviously the fire chief, that's a no-brainer. And then with the building inspector.
Fire, police.
Yeah.
Facilities.
DPW.
Yeah.
Right, and so we're saying, you guys are being honest, saying about 6 times
That's
this
it.
year, 4 for you, 2 for another
for
member.
John.
I mean, I think if we can easily justify that the people that have the car have to make calls at any time, I don't really see a problem. I mean, if a problem comes up because of this policy, we can always revisit it, but I think, I'd rather just err on the side of convenience if people have to the last thing I would want to do at 2 o'clock in the morning would be clear off my car, drive down to the town hall, clear off another car, get in that one, and then get there. I'd rather just be able to go respond. Customer service is a big thing, what we're working on, and I think getting to the call.
And some of the rationale for getting the vehicle too was kind of not only to facilitate easier transportation for the department, but also to have an official vehicle to pull up to a situation such as that. So, I mean, I'm certainly willing to kind of file this under on-call, and like Eddie said, if there's an issue, which I don't expect there to be, we can revisit it, but.
Yeah.
So how would it work with if you have 2 people within the department?
Yeah, there's
In the
just.
vehicle,
Are you-
because I know we had talked about the tax aspect of it. So how would we work that out? Would it be,
I guess it would be a calculation, so even if it's allowed to do deductions if you're not using it. So say you're on away on vacation, you're not going to use it that week, you can kind of modify that. So it would be considered to be a per diem rate that they would be charged, so I know.
They'd probably have to
Angel's
keep a
done some
schedule.
research on it.
You probably have to keep a schedule, 6 months Tom has it at his house, and 6 months the other person has it at their house, and then, because it's having the convenience of the car is why you get taxed by the IRS. So,
So then we just send a statement to the employee, and then it's up to them to declare it and cover it from there. So we have to track it and provide them a notice of employee benefit. And then just like a W-2, it's up to them to take it from there and do their own filing.
And we'll let John figure that out.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm
If
trying,
they're willing to,
because if
yeah.
you know, if you're getting called out and he's, like, how would you determine, like, this week, you know, you would be on call per se, next week John would be on, like, how, you know, versus like, that's what I'm just figuring for like the feasibility.
Oh, so we're saying like, it has to be like designated to like one specific employee?
Not one specific, but where
but
you
you have
have
to-
two employees,
Yeah.
like who's, like, if Tom has it, say, for 8 months of the year and John has it for, like, how do you even account for that?
But did
Right,
you
the
say it's
department-
considered a
The department's going to
benefit?
have to keep track and then notify the treasurer, because the treasurer has to do the calculation and submit a statement every year as to the value of that benefit of having a car to commute back and forth to work with.
And I mean, it can't be much, but if John driving 800 yards to work, you
Yeah.
know what I mean?
It's $3 a day, $1.50 in the morning and $1.50 home, so it's like a flat rate.
And I don't mean to oversimplify, wouldn't it just be like whoever had the truck would be the person that's on call, right?
Right.
Or would,
Right.
right, I mean, so,
Yeah, they would just have to track it amongst themselves and
and then just submit it.
then, yeah.
And it would be easier, obviously, like to do it in like 6 months with one and 6 months with another versus like 1
I would
week.
say
1
we
week.
leave it up
It's up
to.
to
Leave it up to you guys?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be.
You could do it
just-
every other week, you could do it, yeah.
Right, that
But
would
it just has to
on
be,
them. That'd be their paperwork to have to
Mon-
track and like monitor. So I guess that'd just be up to you guys, as long as the log, as long as the paperwork checks out, like,
Yeah.
yeah, it doesn't matter to us.
Yeah, not.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with it. I don't know, do we need to,
Codify it?
like, do we have to update the policy or make a motion, or how do we?
You just have to vote on the request.
The
We don't have
request.
to update the policy.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, so the language is already in the policy. It's just if it's not designated like a public safety, police, fire, public works, or whatever, it would be up to the select board to determine the on-call nature of the vehicle, and then it would allow that department to assign it to an employee to take home.
Okay. Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we allow the Board of Health the ability to take their town vehicle home to an employees for the purpose of responding more quickly to service calls.
second.
Second, any discussion? There be none, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very good. All right, so we'll jump back to town administrator report.
So just one item, Mr. Chair, that I just wanted to share. I know there's been a lot of anxiety with the employees and the employee union groups about our health insurance situation. I know I did inform the board, I don't remember if we talked about it publicly, but last month, the health insurance purchasing consortium that Clinton was a part of voted to dissolve last month. So we're in the process of having to find new health insurance effective July 1. So we were already, just to keep a check on the pricing on the market, we were already doing that. So it kind of unfortunately worked. I mean, fortunately we had it, but unfortunately worked out that we now have to go forward with it. So we're expecting that compilation of all those quotes in the near future from a consultant. We'll then put together a presentation we'll share with the board, because ultimately the select board will have to vote to decide which plan to go with or which vendor to go with. But before that, we will meet with the employee groups, the union presidents, inform them of the information, and then do some discussion to get their input that we can bring back to the board, so that you'll have kind of a broader picture as to where we're going. So I don't have those. I know the numbers have come in. I don't have them yet, but we'll see what the numbers are. They're looking at Town of Clinton going alone, like with all one vendor. We're looking at other consortium health purchase groups. We're looking at the Maya, MMA Maya Health Insurance Trust Group. So there's a lot of different choices out there. And then we will compare that against the state group insurance plan that the state has, which the town is allowed to join as well. We won't be able to do that for July 1, but we will have that as a comparative to see if we want to join that at the next open enrollment. So I know I did reach out to the unions to give them a brief update, but I'm sure a lot of other employees haven't heard or wondering what the news is. But we will be changing health insurance for July 1. We will have pricing soon to share, and then we'll have discussion with the select board as to what we feel is the best route to go for the employees and for the town. So, all right.
Do we have a rough timeline on when you think, like, the next deliverable would be? Like, do you have an idea on, like, when you plan on
Yeah, I think
meeting?
we'll be meeting with the unions within the next couple of weeks this month, probably or at the end of this month. Well, it's already January 17th, but the end of this month, early February, because we're going to need to make a determination in order to do enrollments prior to July 1. So we need to have open enrollment. We need to allow people to know about what the new plan is. Hopefully, if right now the big provider in our consortium is Blue Cross Blue Shield, so hopefully wherever we go, it will have that broad network of physicians, providers that can be covered, so it won't be that big of a disruption to the employees, but we still need to transition over to the new group and new cards and get everybody signed up. So we'll need time for that. So probably by early February, we'll meet with the unions and then bring that feedback back to the board, either late February or the first meeting in March, sometime at that
Okay.
point. So.
Excellent. Thank you for that. There's no administrative business this evening. The next item on the agenda would be fall under old and new business, Memorial Day parade discussion. Mr. Deval.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to bring this, revisit this. We had a brief talk about it, I think 2 meetings ago. Essentially, so we did a little bit of research into like the veterans agent's job description and like what his role is with the Memorial Day parade. There's language in there that basically says that the veterans agent is expected to coordinate with the Memorial Day committee. The problem is the Memorial Day committee no longer exists, and there are no volunteer groups in years past who would run the parade. They just don't exist anymore either. So for the past, I'm going to say 4 years or so, the veterans agent, Brendan Bailey, has kind of taken it upon himself to organize and run the Memorial Day parade. And, 2 things with that. One, it's kind of a lot to ask one person to do that. 2, it's technically not really, it's not in his job description to spearhead that event. He's supposed to just help out. So and 3 is if when a new veterans agent, I don't know how much longer Mr. Bailey is going to continue to be the veterans agent, but when we get a new veterans agent, there's no guarantee that they're going to be willing to take that on. I suppose we could update the job description if we wanted, but then that might, I don't know how that might make the position, maybe a potential new veterans agent doesn't want to lose that Memorial Day vacation day, maybe it would be like a sticking point. So one of the things I would like the board to consider, we don't have to vote on it tonight, is, because we are in a bit of a transition period, so I would like if we could take some steps to kind of formalize or institutionalize the Memorial Day parade so that it is an event that is going to be coordinated by someone that is, it's set in stone, it's a known individual or 2 that is coordinating the event, and then the veterans agent can work with them. So what I would recommend for our consideration is to do something similar to the way the schools handle, for example, when the schools do an event like the high school graduation, they create a stipend and then they open it up to the school personnel, the teachers, and the people at the school, the same way somebody would like apply for a coaching position or something like that. And we would create, what my recommendation would be, we follow that model and create a stipend position, and job description or roles and responsibility for that would all be TBD. That's something we would work with a veterans agent on. But their responsibility would be to essentially coordinate the Memorial Day Parade, which would be, reaching out to different organizations in town to get them to participate in the parade, but also to reach out and try to build back up a volunteer group of people from the community that may be interested in helping out. My fear is if we just transition from our veterans agent running the Memorial Day Parade to now, if he leaves, and now we're totally relying on volunteers to run it, kind of going with no transition, going from no volunteers to needing volunteers to run the parade, that it's going to fall on its face. And the last thing I would want to do is miss 1 or 2 years of what I think is a pretty important event in the town of Clinton. I mean, I don't want to get too gung-ho about it, but this is an event to honor and to recognize people in the military that have made the ultimate sacrifice, and also people that have just served in the military and were out in many places around the world, fighting for the freedom that we all enjoy. And I think we should do what we can to kind of hold this event together and give it a chance to rebuild. So to that end, what I would recommend would be 2 stipend positions. And again, this is all just my idea, so you guys can kind of see where I'm coming from, and then we can talk about the details further. And I want to get feedback from all you guys on, what you think of this. But my recommendation would be 2 stipend positions. One would be a coordinator, and the other would be an assistant. And we could work on roles and responsibilities for them. And I would say we could do this as a year-to-year stipend and just kind of revisit it at the end of each year, because I would imagine that part of the responsibility for this coordinator would be to try to get the different the VFW, the PAV, all these groups in town, to try to kind of build up another Memorial Day committee. And maybe we get to a point in 2 or 3 years where that committee is built up and is very robust, and maybe we don't need that stipend anymore. Maybe that new Memorial Day committee can kind of run with it on their own. And at that point, we could kind of pull back. But I do think right now it's a very kind of delicate time for that parade. And I would recommend us taking some steps to formalize it and kind of protect that event over the next couple of years, when I think it's going to be kind of vulnerable, and allow whoever decides to take that stipend position, allow them some time to kind of build that Memorial Day committee back up. So that's kind of my pitch, and I'm just kind of leave it open to if the rest of the board has any feedback or any comments on that idea. Thank you.
I think it's a great idea, great start. I know that we had talked about the veterans agent was going to reach out to the various veteran groups to kind of bring them in, to garner some support. But with volunteerism with different boards and the turnover that can happen amongst those boards, and at least having a position dedicated to it here at the town hall would ensure that the Memorial Day Parade continues.
Would that be a new position? That goes through the personnel board?
I think if it's just a small stipend, we can look into that, whether it needs to go to the personnel board, but if it's just a small stipend, year to year, one-time thing, it's not a permanent. Because with personnel board, any seasonal positions or kind of temporary positions, those don't fall under the bylaws, so we'd have to define what that is, and it may not need to go through them. The board could just do it themselves. So.
Do we have a kind of list of things that the veterans agent does to coordinate it? I guess I'm still unclear as to what the lift is of this effort.
We can ask the veterans agent to supply us with like what he does on a year-to-year basis, but in general, I would think the job description would be, number one would be, I know they're very busy putting flags up at the cemetery for Memorial Day, so that's one thing. Second thing would be, and I think this is one thing that the veterans agent doesn't really have a lot of time to do right now, which is proactively reaching out to different organizations in town to try to get them to get involved in the actual parade itself and to have a section of the parade for their organization to march in. So that would be another thing. The third thing, like I mentioned, would be trying to reach out not only to get people involved in the parade the day of, but to get people to join a new Memorial Day parade committee. So it'd be, organizations like the Polish American Veterans and the Veterans of Foreign War, among many other organizations in town that may be interested in that. But that would kind of take a little bit of coordinating, so that would be kind of like what I would think would be like a third responsibility. And then the fourth, obviously, would be the coordinating and running of the event the day of, and the preparation a couple days prior, but the running of it the day of. But if we think as a board tonight that we're at least comfortable with the idea of it, I think it would be worth to ask the veterans agent just to put together what he thinks the job descriptions for, he's been doing it for the last couple of years, so he has a pretty good insight into exactly what those roles are and what he thinks would be appropriate for the coordinator and the assistant to handle, and what he thinks would be appropriate for his office, because the veteran, it is in the job descriptions, the veterans office is directed to work with the committee. So they're directed to work with an entity that is running the parade. They're just not really supposed to be like, it's not worded that they're supposed to be running the parade themselves. They're supposed to just be assisting in the parade. So I think if the board is comfortable, we can ask the veterans agent to put together either a list of his activities of what he does, or how he would envision the activities would break down for a coordinator and an assistant. And then it would all be a draft, just a proposal, and we can kind of review it at a future select board meeting and see if we want to move forward on it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm open to it. My question whether we need two people for it, but I'm open to exploring it. I do agree that it is incredibly difficult to get anyone to volunteer to help with these community events, Old Home Day being possibly a victim of that. So I'm open to it. Possibility.
Okay. So I'll take it upon myself. I'll reach out to the veterans agent, and we will. I will ask him to put together or Mike go through you to the veterans agent, whatever the appropriate protocol here, but just request the veterans agent to put together a list of roles and responsibilities for Memorial Day. And yeah, the idea of a coordinator and assistant, that's just my idea. If we think it's enough just to have one coordinator and let that be it, I'm okay with that. But I think we're at least to the stage where we can review what the responsibilities are to run that event, and then review them ourselves and see if it makes sense to put that into a stipend position.
Very good.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think just not to discuss tonight, but something just to keep in the back of our minds is kind of could probably fall into, I think we talked about, about the other groups too, because there's a lot of other events that are in similar situations, so it may be something that will parlay.
Right, and yeah, there is the kind of like the slippery slope argument, like now, would some of the other groups that run these events now expect us to do something similar? And to that, I would say, that this is it's kind of a special event of recognition for people that have made the ultimate sacrifice. So like, I think that there would be, I would agree with you, like, I wouldn't want to get into the, let me see, I wouldn't be opposed to having, depending on the event, having people stipend to run it, but I definitely don't want this to be like start a slippery slope where now every event wants this type of accommodation. I think this event is very kind of crucial to the kind of like the heart and soul of the town. I think it'd be a sin to have the event not happen for a couple of years. So I'm in favor of it definitely for this specific event. That doesn't mean I'm in favor of doing this for all events. It also doesn't mean I'm against it, but I'm just saying, like, this one, I think it warrants it absolutely. And then we can kind of like, we can visit those other events if they would like some similar accommodation, take it just one at a time.
Mr. Chair, sorry to jump in late. I think this is a terrific idea. One thing, if you want to back up, one thing we might want to think about is how events are stacking up over the next few years. I was late forgetting about the holiday posting, but next year is Clinton's 175th birthday, and the year after that is the federal 250. I don't know what they're calling that, but there are some big events coming up, and I don't know how we want to celebrate these things, but it's going to be an added stress akin to this. So maybe something to keep, and hopefully we'll get it on the next agenda to talk about if you want to enlist the Holder people or the historical commission for if we want to do something. I don't know. I remember when I was a kid, the bicentennial. I seem to remember a parade for the bicentennial in Lancaster, but again, it was 50 years ago. So I don't know what the appetite is for that kind of thing, and it's back-to-back years, but. You know, I think that people enjoy these events, and they are more and more complicated to run. So, yeah, while this, I think, is a good temporary solution, maybe we need to look at how much of this we want to do and how we want to do it.
Right, so like expand it into some other events that might be coming up.
Maybe.
Yeah, I think if we're smart about the way we write the job description, and in the job description we have, one of the responsibilities is to try to recruit volunteers from the community to build up, because the ideal situation is that there's enough volunteers and there's a self-sustaining committee that can run some of these events. But I think to kind of generate that, we need to have a position at the town hall that's reaching out and coordinating and trying to entice people to kind of take that on. So yeah, I don't think I wouldn't have any problem if we wanted to add a couple other events we know that were coming up on the horizon under this responsibility, provided that part of the responsibility of this role is to try to get volunteers so that at a future point, like I'd like to be able to, in 3 or 4 years, maybe the group is, like I said, we have a good volunteer group, it's self-sustaining, it's got structure, and we might not even need that stipend position anymore. But I think for right now, I think specifically for the Memorial Day Parade, possibly for a couple other events, it would make sense to have a position like that. And I would open it up kind of similar to, I would create the stipend position and I would open it up just to current town employees first and see if any of them are interested in taking on the responsibility. If we don't get a lot of feedback, then we can open it up to the public, but I would like to give the current town employees the opportunity if they would want to help us out in organizing that event.
And I didn't mean to muddy the waters. I like you were saying, it'd be, in an ideal world, the appetite for these things would equal the volunteers willing to help with them. But I think a lot of people, enjoy these events and don't understand that they don't happen by accident. So, yeah, I didn't mean to step on that. But
No, I think it's a good idea.
No.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Excellent.
And if anyone out there wants to volunteer, please step forward. We're happy to get the volunteers.
The next item on the agenda, the long-awaited employee customer service survey. I don't know how do you want to approach this? Do you want to speak on it? Was Human Resources manager planning to speak on it, or any recommendations?
Yeah, I think just at least for the board to kind of see some of the results, some of the recommendations, and kind of get some feedback from the board. Because ultimately, I think some of these recommendations would be helpful to have the board's endorsement and the board's backing and support there. So then as staff could then do implementation. So there was, I know there's probably a lot there. Just kind of outlined the current situation, gave kind of an overview of some of the employee responses, and then came up with recommendations. Some of these things like the telephone system that we are moving forward, the board's already supported on the technology update, but some of them too, hours and people kind of following labor laws and making sure that we're, kind of in compliance with those. Those are things I think we can address.
Yeah, I thought it was, the report was, it was interesting to see it all written down in a report to kind of go through and be able to look at the different aspects of it. And one of the things that stood out throughout the entire report, and the Collins Center also listed as under the recommendations as, developing consistent procedures across all departments. And something that kind of stood out to me as eye-opening, of the employees who responded to the survey, there are 11 different schedules that currently exist between hours and not taking lunch, hours and the length of the lunch. And that was also feedback from the employees within their survey that it's inequitable and inconsistent, because if one department has one employee, then they don't have maybe the same opportunity, whether it's working through lunch and coming in later or whatever the case may be. So I think that was something that caught my eye, and ultimately, the goal needs to come up with consistent procedures that keep the customer in mind, that centers around the customer, which they have mentioned, where the practices for both internal and external, in person, via the phone or the internet, in order to provide a robust customer service experience with strong communication and information. So I think if that's going to be the baseline of the objective for administration and then for the board to kind of shape this, then there definitely needs, there's a lot of thought that's going to need to go into this to make sure that we're achieving both. I understand on the, having the communication within the departments, where if a call comes into one department and then they're being told to, contact this department, and if nobody's there, then I could see why employees would be frustrated that they have no way of knowing this, which also impacts customer service.
Yeah, and that's the lens I think we would look at it, is what's the customer experience and the consistency or reliability to know when people come in that they can get done what they need to have done here in the building. So that would be the first lens that we'd look at it. And then other would be, again, if the board wants to develop that kind of standardization, to set those policies if that's where we want to go. Over time, when we had a lot of elected offices, different independent boards and departments, that things over time, that people do things a little differently. So is the goal to be consistent so that everything is the same for everyone? And then that will then, come back to the customer will then see, have that same experience. But that's where we kind of wanted that input. Here's what we're saying is the lay of the land, and then getting some input from the board as to what you feel would be helpful of how we go forward.
I mean, a few of my takeaways were, I come from a communications background, so I do think communications can solve a lot of problems. So some of the stuff that stuck out to me was just the lack of information on our website in terms of maybe hours. Like if I think the town hall is open from 8 to 4, I would expect every department to be open 8 to 4. Maybe we take a step back from having the town hall hours, and if you have a specific need, you try to figure out, call or from the website information if they're open from 8 to 3. Ideally it would be great if it was open from 8 to 4, but as we were saying, there's maybe one person in the office. It may be unrealistic. And, one of the bullet points is limited understanding by customers of the role of the staff of the department. It's like when you walk in, I saw the sign when I walked in about the dog licenses. I just don't assume people would know the town clerk is where you get, they just know what they need. So building out the website to support that in terms of like, how do I renew my dog license? I go, kind of starting there, it might be good, like low hanging fruit. And then also too, putting the signage recommendations in terms of be back at, 1:30. I don't want to dip too much into the working through lunch without our human resources person being here, because if that's a regular occurrence, then I don't think that's a great practice in general. Of course, every once in a while, people work through lunch because they have an appointment or something, but if that's a regular schedule, I don't want to make too many comments about that right at the moment, but.
And that's in the report
Yeah.
as well, right, where some staff do not take lunch to leave early at the end of the day. Others are allowed to eat at their desk and leave early. Others come in later and take a shorter lunch. Some employees are receiving the paid lunchtime, others are not. Personally, I think that's one thing that I think it needs to be a priority on the practice of working through lunch or banking lunch. I think it's not something I support. If it's an hour lunch, the employee needs to take it, and what they choose to do during that time is up to them. But having an option of I'll eat at my desk and then leave an hour earlier, I'm not supportive of that practice.
No, if people say they work through lunch, by saying that, they mean they eat their salad really quick in like 5-10 minutes and then continue to work. I would say, well, you just took lunch. You were eating at your desk, you're taking lunch. And the other part of this is aren't we, and maybe this is something we'll be discussing, but you're required to have breaks so many hours. There's labor laws and stuff that say if you work so many hours, you have to have a break. So I don't even know if you can tell, even if somebody wants to work through lunch, I think the amount of time that they'd be working straight would run afoul of some of the labor laws that currently exist. But Mr. Chair, I'm just curious. Mike, you've had a chance to look at some of these recommendations. Is your office generally okay with the recommendations made in this report?
Yeah, I looked through them. I think there's some good ideas, and I think there are things that we need to follow through on. We can do more with the website. We can do with the phone system. Part of the Office 365, there'll be shared calendars, so people will know who's in, who's not in, and that stuff like that we're working on. So I think some of these things are good recommendations. They're good things that we're already moving forward on, which is great, and to point it out to show that we're on a good track. There are others, I think, that, again, that are how much do we want standardization?
Right.
So I think if one office does it this way, but they're still following it legally, and then office does it differently, do we want everyone to do it the same? That type of stuff, so.
It's just my opinion on that, but my feeling is if it's a service department, if it's a department where the community comes in to pay, drop a check, get documentation, whatever, I mean, I would like, in the vein of like customer service, I would like to see some uniformity and standardization to all those different departments. But my one question, I don't know if we're prepared to answer this tonight, or if this might be our town council question, is how does this, so we have, the Council on Aging has its own board, the library has its own board, Board of Health has its own board. So if we are in favor of a particular way of running things, and those boards come back and say, we're our own separate board, we don't have to follow your recommendations, how does that, who does have the final say? Like, they're their own separate board, but they're also like working like at the town hall with an office at the town hall. They're using town resources, town money. Where does that, who kind of has the final say in something like that? Or is it kind of like an unknown right now?
Right, I think that's something town council is looking at right now, but they certainly, everyone still has to follow the bylaw. So if there's a personnel bylaw or administrative bylaw or those type of things, even if they're elected board, they still have to follow that. But beyond that, I think as you mentioned it too, labor laws, so state and federal labor laws. So all of those type of things, everyone has to follow no matter what. But if it falls outside of all that, is it another independently elected board have the ability to modify their policies compared to what the select board says for everyone else or departments that are under your jurisdiction. So that's something that Bob is taking a look at, and we'll have an answer for you on.
Okay.
Go ahead.
No, sorry. I also just wanted to know, like, this is almost like just a self-assessment. I think when I first got it, I was like, oh, this is kind of a review, like, by the people, by citizens, by the people we serve. But this is almost just more of a self-assessment to get a lay of the land. Because even some of the feedback was in terms of, what are the barriers to providing the best practice in customer service? And some of it's like limited understanding by customers of the role of the staff, lack of knowledge on the customer side, difficult customer, so we are kind of, I think too, it's, okay, so how can we solve those, if they're experiencing, they think that they're experiencing lack of knowledge on the customer side, lack of knowledge or difficult customer, like why are they difficult? Why do they have, maybe it's, like we said, maybe it's supplying them with additional information. Maybe it's a sign outside the door that says, this is what this department does, this is what this, just to kind of, both educate, but I just wanted to kind of like note it, like this is more of a self-assessment versus people coming into the town hall and saying like, how did we do?
Good point.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, we didn't do a poll or survey of the public. It was internally, but I think it did show. I think there were some employees that were honest, and I think seeing some areas to improve themselves, going around the building. So I think it was good. It was good in that way. And then we had an outside firm kind of guiding us. But yeah, it was just ourselves. It wasn't really looking at the public, and that I think could be helpful too, to know, again, because we should all be looking at it from the lens of the public. Like, what did they come here for? What are their barriers? What are their issues that they're having that we can do something? Because even some of the comments on the employees, because I don't have the names of who made what comment, so I don't know what they made. But some of these comments, I'd like to follow up more too. If you made a comment saying that you have this barrier or you have this concern, well, what do you think is the solution? How can we address it? How can we make it better? So if there's that from employees, but also it'd be great to hear that from the public as well, too. Is there a way that we can do something different? Because that's what we're here for. We wouldn't be needed if we weren't here to service the public, you know?
And if that comment or that mentality is prevalent, that one of the biggest obstacles some people here think is that the public is not properly educated on how to interact with that department, depending on how prevalent that like attitude is, I would say that is a little bit disappointing, because people are not experts in municipal law. They just don't. And I don't know, I don't think there's a lot of available resources to kind of like guide them through the process. So I do think, to a point, part of our responsibility to the public is to kind of, if they are uneducated about what to do, is to kind of educate them a little bit. There is a little bit of hand-holding that may be involved. Like, we can't just run a department and sit there and stare blankly at somebody that doesn't know what to do next and just wait for them to, like, you know, either figure it out or get out of their office. Like, we do need to be a little bit more supportive. And I know, Mike, you've been very much in favor. We've been talking about some like online portals that customers could go through to kind of like educate themselves ahead of time. So that's part of it. But I think the takeaway here is that, you know, this board seems to be pretty unified in really wanting to push customer service. And part of that customer service sometimes will involve educating members of the community that aren't familiar with what board to go to, what process to follow, what steps to take to get certain things done. And we don't want to, you know, there is some responsibility that goes on member of the community, if they want to get a project done, they do have to have some idea of how to go about it. But within reason, we should be willing to kind of educate and help people navigate the process.
Mr. Carrigan?
Yeah, to amplify Ed, and I know we throw around customer service a lot. This goes beyond that. I mean, this is the vocation we've chosen. It's not like we're selling bananas at Hannaford, and if I don't like the bananas, I can go down to Shaw's. I mean, what we do here is the only place in town that people can get this. Furthermore, those people are the ones who, I mean, it's public service. We are serving them. They pay the taxes to make this run. They can't go anywhere else. And so we can't turn our back on them. We don't have that luxury. And yes, does it stink sometimes that someone comes in and maybe their English isn't as good, or maybe they don't understand that they should have gone to this board before this board. But again, this is the vocation we've chosen. And I'd like to think, the thing that encouraged me, like Mike said, that it seems like there's some frustration in the building that echoes what the board's been saying, that we can be doing this better. And I think we have to look at how we can standardize things. As Matt said, I know it's difficult it's not growing pains, but we're kind of a tweener town where it's still a very small operation, but we provide a lot of services, and that's only going to increase. So we have to figure out how that works. And I think whenever possible, we have to move toward online offerings and things like that. Because as this board said many times in the past, the standards and the expectations of people, whether justified or not, is a lot more than it was 10 or 20 years ago. And Mike can speak to this better than me. I mean, people expect more, and I think there are tools out there where you can deliver more, but a lot of it, as we've all been saying, just begins and ends with that face-to-face. Sometimes that's the only interaction they're going to have with local government, and it can poison the well for a lot of people if they come in and either the door's shut, or the phone isn't answered, or the email goes ignored, or people just say, no, we can't do that anymore. It's not how we should do it in this town. And again, if people out there disagree, then I'm up in a couple of years, just get rid of me, because I think the town deserves better. And I think the tools are out there. I think the people here in this building mean well. I just think that we have to nudge a little harder to get out of some old bad habits. And again, it's a wake-up call that a lot of us knew was coming, but it's nice to see a third party come in and say, by talking to our own people, that the thing that we've brought up here and on, while we're campaigning isn't fairy tale. Like that, we can do better. It's not that people are trying to do bad, but we have to do better. Like I said, customer service, I love the term, but every time I hear it, it implies that we can say no and they can go someplace else and get their sneakers or whatever. They can't. So, yeah, does it stink sometimes? Yeah. Do I like getting yelled at by people who aren't happy with things? No, but that's what I signed up for, and that's what we all signed up for. So at a certain point, we have to look ourselves in the mirror and say, do we want to do this job? And if we're going to do it, we have to do it right. So I think this is a great first start. I'm glad we have a good HR person on board to help us implement it. And yeah, we're going to have to take a look in the mirror and see what's realistic. It's going to be a process. We're not going to get there overnight, but I think we can get there, and I think the town deserves it, and I think we all want the same thing. So.
Right, and I see it as a positive, that, the report does state that the employees are, obviously, they like their job, they're
Yep.
hardworking, they do a good job, but a lot of times you do the job the way that you know it or the way that you've always done it. So if there's a way that we can support them to give them some of the tools, I think, as Sean said, or point out a different way of doing things that would be more embraced by the public, that maybe someone didn't think of, or a small little tweak that said, hey, we can do this. So I think it's a way that we can use it to help the employees make their job easier by doing some of these things. So.
Looking at it, one of the things on the list on the non-English speaking customers, the school uses a service, when we have parent-teacher conferences or things like that, you call this number and they connect you with a live translator on that. So while, that might be something we could use where if someone's coming in and there's a language barrier, here's the number, and it's incredibly efficient and super effective. So I think going through this checklist, I think there's things that we could knock off pretty easily. What would be your recommendation? How do you want to approach receiving feedback from the board, or how do we want to shape this?
Yeah, well, what I was going to do, I did give a copy of the report to all department heads. So what I was going to do was going to meet with them and reach out for some of their specific ways or ideas that we can kind of take care of some of this. So as a board, I don't know if that's something that the board wanted to give individual feedback, and then we could come back at another meeting and discuss the department heads and the board members' comments, and then discuss that further and see which kind of prioritize what actions to take. What are things that are already in motion, what are things that are easy to do, and what are the harder things to do, that might take a little bit more effort to kind of come across. Like even that in terms of putting signs on the door. I don't think anyone would be opposed to that, but we should buy standard sign. What should it look like? What should it say? And then just make it that it's included on every department. And if there's somebody not there to take the customer, that they have a sign to tell them, it's a one-person office, we're at lunch, we'll be back in an hour, or we're off today, try us tomorrow, or here's a phone number, or leave a message, or a website, or email, or something, whatever we determine what that should be. So I think you need to break it down kind of in the different parts and get the feedback from departments, from board members, and then set up a plan of action as to what's in progress, what we could do quickly, and then what's going to take a little bit more work to put together. Because if we are changing schedules or we're trying to cross-train employees, one of the recommendations, and I don't think they were saying to cross-train that all the employees should know how to do someone else's job, because that would be too difficult to do. But at least to know everybody's function. So if they're not there, who do we refer them to? Who do we call or take a message, or who do we refer them to if that office isn't available? So that's something I think we could work on and let each department know. This is what each department does. These are the major things that the public will be coming for. If they're not open, here's how we refer them. Here's what we do. Kind of setting up those procedures. So that would take a little bit more time, but there's a lot I think that can be done.
Mr. Chair?
Sure.
Do you think would it make sense to simplify it, to just give Mike a period of time to reach out to the department heads, and then let him and Angela, let their office determine, the feedback from the department heads, and have them come up with their proposal for implementation, and then they can present it to us, and then as a board, we may have some feedback and some additions or some things we like, don't like, and then kind of make a final decision on adopting. As opposed to us giving Mike feedback and him getting feedback from the department head to put something together. Maybe just give him some time to get the feedback from the department head, to present it to us, and then we'll have, all right, this is kind of like the first proposal. Then we'll review that, and then we might have some feedback, some things we might want to see a little bit differently, and then we can have that discussion, transparently with Mike.
Yeah, I mean, I would disagree a little bit on that, just from, we've received, this contains survey information from the employees.
Okay.
Some of the department heads, so I would prefer providing feedback during the time of gathering information versus gathering info and then having to process our feedback. Like, I think, if we have feedback about a particular area, I'd like to be able to provide that while you're gathering info versus
Okay.
you gather all this info and then we enter this
All right.
second, right? And that would be that's my only opinion. I
So
would
just
prefer.
provide feedback now and get.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem. Yeah, that's fine.
And then, if we're not meeting now we meet in 3 weeks. So I don't know if the board wants to look at a potential timeline, like if is 3 weeks enough to get feedback together and then have a rough idea.
Yeah, I mean, that would give me enough time to meet with all the departments. Because again, like I said, I don't identify who made what comment, so I would
Yeah.
really like to meet with departments individually and say, all right, you've had time to read this now. What are your thoughts? How do you think we can implement some of these things? What do you think are some of the barriers? Because this was for all the employees, so it was staff and department managers. So now it's a matter of, okay, what are action items now? What actually can be done, and not just kind of be a philosophical discussion,
Right.
things that we can actually do.
And Mr. Chair, I don't have a problem with your approach. My only issue with it is that I think it's best for Michael to receive the feedback from the board total, because I can give Mike a laundry list of things that I want to see in that report, but 4 other people on the board might not agree with my recommendations. So I kind of wouldn't want Mike to run around trying to incorporate something that I want if other members of the board don't think that it makes sense. So I kind of think it makes sense for our feedback to be done in a public setting, and that way, majority rules, and if 3 people think something's a good idea, then it's a good idea, and if one person does and the other don't, and then it doesn't, then Mike knows not to include that. So just something to consider, that I think it would be easier for Mike to digest our feedback if he knew the feedback was coming from the board versus coming from 5 individual people.
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, that's fine.
So what's our homework?
I would say our homework would be to go through the report, pick out some things, if there's anything that you want to.
Present before next meeting or at next meeting?
I would say at next meeting, right? If you're able to provide us feedback, I mean, is that the thought? If we receive the feedback, if Michael's able to put the feedback together from the employees.
Correct, but I think to Sean's point, though, if we give ourselves the deadline of like getting our own specific recommendations out to other board members so that, like, I know coming into that meeting, Sean's kind of interested in this, that, and the other thing, Julie's kind of interested in this, and that way we kind of know where everyone's heads are at before the meeting, so that way when we have the meeting, we can kind of discuss the different feedback and what we think is a priority.
So I just don't know, how do you do that without violating the open
We
meeting
go
law,
to,
right?
go through Michael and he can,
So
You can disseminate information without violating open meeting law, I think, can you?
I don't,
disseminating information like, hey, we have a meeting tonight, thank you, versus like,
so if we went,
Are we talking about like the recommendations that they have? Like just start with maybe prioritizing them? Like what are your top three?
right now?
No, I mean,
Oh, okay.
in general. But I mean, like the concept of it.
Yeah, or like to Sean's point, maybe we just send it to Mike and he doesn't even have to say whose idea is what. At least, I don't need to know who wants to do what. I just need to know what the recommendation or the feedback is so that I can have time to kind of digest it before the meeting. I just think that's a more efficient way to handle it than to kind of hear the ideas the first time at that meeting and have to like kind of make a judgment like right then and there possibly versus having like a couple days to digest it and kind of form an opinion ahead of time.
well, if we set the 31st is 2 weeks, that would give us, that would be able to get it in the packet. Would that give, if we
For
had-
that first weekend?
For the 7th?
February.
So if you had it, if we turn things in by the 31st, I don't know, you tell me, Michael, would that be possible to crunch that by the 2nd or whenever the packet goes out, or even if you could just,
First, the meeting's on the 7th, right? So
right, so the 2nd is a Friday. I mean, or it could be the 29th, I mean, a week and a half, I don't know how long people need.
Yeah, no, I think.
If we want to do for the next meeting.
Yeah, the 31st is fine.
Okay.
Yeah, to give a couple extra days, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So then I could have like a town
Yes.
side of comments and a select board side
Exactly.
of comments,
Yes.
but not put any labels to them.
So all of our feedback due to Michael by the 31st.
Sure.
Works for me.
do we want it like there's, so the things on there with like the, that are already in process?
Yeah, like the phone system's already in
you know,
process.
Right, yeah, and that'll come up with kind of the action plan saying, I think they all should be addressed and then have a comment, in process or, this is being done or not being done or whatever. And then there are things that we may need funding for, and then there may be things that we may need a policy from the board for, to actually, implement and enforce.
Yeah, I mean, when I look at the recommendations made by the Collins Center, I mean, I would be, I would basically support implementing their recommendations based upon feedback from the, from town administrator and assistant town administrator, right? When I look at the we're not looking at the survey feedback from the employees, simply the recommendation made.
Well, maybe we're triaging that and seeing what, if we think we got to fix the lunch situation, we got to fix the signage or fix
Yeah.
standardization, maybe ranking the recommendations, like
Yeah.
what's easier to do or what,
Right, what's kind of like can be done without
Phones
cost?
are done,
What
so we
can
can
be,
cross that
yeah.
up. But like, what's low hanging fruit?
Right.
What are the things we think are priorities and how that matches up with what the departments think they can do? And then if that doesn't jive, then that's where we have to start figuring it out. So maybe do it that way.
Sounds good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, buy recycle policy.
Mr. Chair, I passed out some information. This is just, I wanted to introduce for the board. This can be discussed at the next meeting as well. The top page is the current buy recycle policy that select board boards did years ago. It's the one we've had in place since the beginning. When we apply for recycle grants, that's a requirement that we have a buy recycle policy. So where possible, departments will buy recycle or things that will save energy, save materials or whatever it may be. So the top sheet is the one that we've had in place, pretty kind of simple, just a couple of points that we've done for a number of years. The second page is a policy that DEP is kind of a model policy that DEP has, a little bit more robust, maybe some things we don't necessarily want to do or we can and can't do. And then a couple of the other ones are not recommendations, they're examples that DEP had given that they liked from other towns. So it's just a packet information I just want to provide to the board. Look it over, see if you're good with current policy we have, because we distributed it in February in order to apply for the grant in June. So it's just another check off that we have to do. So it's been a number of years, so I just thought I would just give it to the board to take a look at, see if you want to make any changes or keep it the way it is. So we can talk about that at the next meeting.
Perfect. Thank you. The next item, email information for boards and commissions. And this coincides with the recommendations made by the customer service report, where, you know, I'm in full support of having a general email for all boards and commissions or departments. So if somebody has, you know, for example, the Selectboard at clintonma.gov, where it's one email that goes, we can, you know, it can be set up to forward to whoever it needs to go to. But I do think the communication seems to be lacking on many of these boards and commissions. So if, you know, simple as that, right? Where I think if we can create one email, it goes to whoever it needs to be disseminated to, and then if any citizen has a question, that's the email, and it's on the webpage. You know, right now there's a little bit of a search and rescue aspect where you go to the page, and then to get the contact information, it brings you to a directory. Like, let's limit the number of clicks, and you know, how people respond back to them, what email they respond back. So be it. But you know, especially if we're going to Microsoft, everyone, you know, I would be supportive of everybody having a town issued email that would be engaging with the public. And you know, that's that. I mean, that's.
So you're not talking about one email for every department. You'd like department by department, you're saying they should have like for example, the library would have one email for like
a general mailbox.
General email for everything to do with the library, and then it goes to the way the select board works for us. We see all of those emails, and then whoever wants to respond can respond.
Yeah, I would say to a degree. Like I would say, yeah, like if you have, and it doesn't matter what it is, like if it's info at whatever.
Yeah.
But like right now, like there are boards, commissions, and departments that don't really have a general email. So
Right.
if you wanted to email, if you had a question and you wanted to use, you really don't know who in that department you should be contacting, or just to simplify it.
Yep.
Like,
I agree. It makes sense.
you know, and I know that, you know, this is probably a little bit of a waiting until, you know, everything gets implemented. But I think that, you know, departments, boards, commissions, this is an easy buy-in. If someone has a question for the zoning board, there should be a zoning email that can go to any of the members that are on that board, and then how they choose to, whoever responds, they can figure out amongst themselves. But truthfully, like anybody on the zoning board, I think should have a town email, because if they're going to respond, I don't think it should be from someone's personal email.
Right, and I guess that's where, you can kind of delve more into the weeds and determine what the policy should be and how it should be, whether, and I agree, there should be some standard that the public can get a hold of every department or every board, but is it going to be just a generic email that gets forwarded to their personal emails if they want to know about it, but that only, staff or chair or somebody responds to it? Or does every board or volunteer in the town get their own email?
Right.
And they can then act as a town employee on their own.
Fair enough.
Instead of as the board. So, either way, it doesn't matter. I think it's just a matter of setting the policies in place. There should be some standard that the public can get a hold of somebody.
Yeah.
So that should be the minimum. But then once it goes into the back office, kind of try to develop who will be getting it, the email, who will be responding, and,
Great
does
point.
everybody get an official town email if you're a volunteer or whatever, so.
Yeah, because I mean, if the zoning board gets sued for something, then does that open up someone's personal email to,
Yeah.
I don't know. I kind of like having the town email on that, everything there, they can check out anything they want.
Right.
But again, we're under a little more scrutiny than most boards, but I don't know.
Right, absolutely. I think the only boards that have town email are the select board. So, the others that will have a generic email, like conservation@Clinton.ma or something like that.
Well, the thing
But
is,
in
if you
terms
have-
of individuals, that the only individuals that all have a personal town email are the select board right now. So
And
that's-
I guess the thing, it has to be too, like, it can't be a black hole. So it's nice having these things, but if they're going ignored or not, so it's a.
Yeah, I think the
double-edged
conservation one, like say,
sword.
just for example, not taking them out or whatever, I think that goes to the chair, so the chair
Right.
monitors that one. So,
Okay.
So again, whether all the boards are in that model or the select board model where everybody gets an individual email. So that's something we could talk about, how you want to handle that. And once we get Microsoft, there's a lot more functionality, a lot more boxes, a lot more opportunity to kind of keep up on it. Where right now, we have a lot of boxes, but they're very small storage.
Yeah.
So they don't, the functionality is difficult, but also the storage is very limited. So you run out pretty quickly. So going to Microsoft, that'll all change. It's going to be like night or day, so. Yeah.
And I think this ties into the customer service survey. Like, we're not trying to make things more difficult. We're trying to make things easier for the public. And I think by doing that, we're going to have happier public coming in. Like, I think where the friction happens is when the expectations don't match up with the service we're providing.
Right.
And if there's an easy fix out there, like getting phones that work, getting email servers that work, these are basic things. And I think, like you said, night and day. I think when we find these easy fixes and make them, I think it's going to help the people in this building that want to do a good job, do a better job, and in
Right.
turn, the public's going to come in here with a better understanding that, hey, this isn't a black hole
Right.
where they're just taking our tax dollars and ignoring us. So I think these all dovetail together.
Yeah.
What a
Perfect.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, this would kind of fold into the customer service
Yeah.
recommendations, right? Yeah.
And it's just, I know it could be a little bit, you're gonna have to have some buy-in, which I don't want to use the live streaming of board meetings as a barometer for buy-in, but, I think that's the direction,
But nobody can say they don't know what we're talking about. So, whether they like it or not, they can watch, I was at the concert tonight trying to see where you guys were on the agenda to see what I was missing. So, like, we're walking the walk here. So, we're not asking people to do anything we're not willing to do ourselves. And I would like to think that other boards in town would follow that example, because I know they're all good public servants.
Very good. Next item on the agenda, Superintendent of Public Works appointment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Pursuant to our special legislation that set up the appointment process for the town administrator, any department head position does have to be noticed to the select board. The select board does have an opportunity to veto or reject that nomination. So tonight, after going through the process, I'm here to bring a candidate to the board to announce for appointment. That would be Kevin Bartlett to be the next superintendent of public works. Mr. Bartlett is currently a superintendent of public works in another community. He's been doing that for almost 10 years. Similar type operations that we are doing right now. There's going to be certainly an opportunity for professional growth for him, which is what he was excited about it. It was I think we were fortunate to get some of that experience in the pool. We didn't have a huge pool based on this skilled position. There aren't a lot of applicants out there right now, so the numbers were small, but I think we were able to attract someone that has a background that could work here in Clinton. So Mr. Bartlett knows the community, knows the region, and he knows the job, and I think going forward, based on reviewing the search committee that came up with the short list for me and reviewing those applicants, it's my opinion that based on what was presented to me, that he would be the best choice to move forward with. So.
Mr. Chair, I move that we waive our 15-day review period.
Second?
Any discussion?
I just want to thank Michael, and who was, I know you.
Matt?
Just you? Okay. And Paradigm Solutions for helping out with this. Everybody involved in this search. Angela. And Christine, thank you. I wasn't involved, as you can see. But it's just another example of how we're trying to professionalize these searches and cast a wide net to try and find the best available people. Luckily, we found someone from our town who's a veteran, who knows the region, and I think I'm really excited to start working with them. I want to thank Chris again for helping out during this gap period. You can retire now officially.
Not yet.
Sorry, whenever Mike says so.
Soon.
Yeah, I'm happy to waive this review period, and thanks for all your hard work in getting the best person we can get.
No, thank you, and I think having Paradigm, they did help with kind of reviewing the candidates, doing background, conducting interviews, and all came back highly recommended. So we're looking forward to this next chapter. So,
And no hard feelings, Steve.
yeah.
It's a family job.
yeah.
It's Lancaster.
Yeah.
They're going to have to start their own survey. Sorry.
We can recommend Paradigm for Lancaster search. Do you have to vote on it?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
all in favor?
Aye.
And that's it, right? So we just waive the...
Thank you.
Did he say when he could start? There's a little transition with Lancaster?
Right, I think there was waiting for this action before he actually gave notice. So he'll look to, so we'll contact him tomorrow, and then he'll give notice. And I think he was asking for a 30-day transition. So
Great.
Mr. McGowan is still on board, part-time basis, and is willing to stay on until the new employee starts to help orientate them as well, too. So, yeah. Good. Thank you.
Excellent. Committee reports? Any committee reports? Nothing? All right. Community announcements. Open Space and Recreation Plan update. The Open Space and Recreation Plan Committee is hosting a second public forum on Monday, February 5th at 7 p.m. at the Parks and Recreation Building located at 560 High Street. Everyone is invited to attend and provide feedback. The information you provide will be used to update the town's open space and recreation plan, which includes a 7-year plan that sets open space, conservation, and recreation goals for the town and provides an action plan to accomplish those goals. Once again, that's on Monday, February 5th at 7 p.m. at the Parks and Recreation Building. Town Clerk's Office News. 2024 dog license are now available. All dogs 6 months and older must register with the town every year. Information is available on the clerk's office page of the town website at www.clintonma.gov.
I'm going to try not to get a late fee on that one this year.
I have one goal.
Can I tack one thing on?
Absolutely.
I want to thank the board for indulging me my tardiness tonight. I was at the Clinton Middle School for their winter concert. I want to congratulate Robin Quist and the kids who sang and performed tonight. They had the chorus and 3 bands, the beginners, the 6th grade, and the 7th and 8th grade. Everything sounded great. It was packed. So congratulations to everyone involved, and thanks for letting me play hooky for a little bit.
And that will be Mrs. Quist's last.
Oh, gosh.
Oh, she retired?
More breaking news. You didn't
I know, jeez.
Whoops.
No, Mr. Coa's birthday.
All right, so our next meeting is going to be on February 7th at 7 PM. I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. Have a great night.